Okay, today we're going to be learning about three properties: the commutative property, the associative property, and the distributive property. The commutative property basically just says you could switch the orders, almost like you have that word tricky T, the than, and you still get the same answer. So if I do 5 plus 8 in the example here, I get 13. If I do 8 plus 5, I still get 13. If I do it with multiplication, 5 times 8 is 40, which is also equal to 8 times 5, which is 40. So basically you can change the numbers order and still get the same answer. This usually only works with plus or finding addition or multiplication. It doesn't really work with subtraction or division. Then we have an associative property. That states that changing the grouping of the addends or the factors does not change the sum or the product. So the groupings in the first problem, 7 plus 4 are together, which would give you a total of 11. And then you add the 2, which would give you a total of 13. Then if I do the other side, and I do 4 plus 2, I get 6, and then 6 plus 7 also gives me 13. And if I do it with multiplication, like on the example below it, 7 times 4 is 28, times 2 gives me a total of 56. If I do the other side, and I do what's in the parentheses, I do 4 times 2, which is 8, and 8 times 7 is also 56. Sorry about my messy writing. Then we have the distributive property. The distributive property is to multiply a sum or difference by a number, but you multiply each number in the sum or the difference by the number outside the parentheses. So if you see in this first example, we have 3 on the outside. So you're going to multiply the 3 times the 7 first, as you see with the arrow, and then you can do the other one, which is 3 times 2, which is 6, and then if you add them together, you have 21 plus 6, which gives you a total of 28. Okay? So, if you did what the first number was, which was 7 plus 2, you got 9. Oops, sorry, not 28. It should have been 27. My bad. If you do 7 plus 2, you get 9, and then if you multiply it times that 3 on the outside, you also get 27. So they're both 27. Okay, so let's look at the first example. Use the properties to simplify the expression and tell which property you are using. Well, I see parentheses and I see 3 sets of numbers or variables. So if I plug in 1 here and work it out, 12 plus 1 is 13, and 13 plus 7 would give me a total of 20. Let's see if I change out the parentheses, if I would still get the same answer. So let's rewrite the problem as 7 plus 12 in the parentheses, and then plus x is by itself. Remember, we said x was going to be 1. We were just trying that number as 1. So if I work what's inside the parentheses first, 7 plus 12 is 19, and 19 plus 1 gives me 20. And look, we have the same exact answer. So we changed who we associated together. In the first problem, 12 and x were associated together. And the problem that I made up right here, 7 and 12 were associated together. In both ways, we both got 20. So what property did I use? I used the associative property. Okay, let's go over to number 2. Again, I see 3 numbers or variable, and I see parentheses. I'm thinking it's probably going to be associative again. So in the first problem, we have the 6.1 associating with x. If I plug in 1 for x, if I add those together, 6.1 plus 1, it would be 7.1. If I add that to 8.4, that would give me a total of 15.5. Let's associate two different numbers together and see if we get the same thing. Again, every time I'm just plugging in 1 for x. Okay, so let's put the 6.1 by itself, and let's put the x with the 8.4 and see if we still get 15.5. So I'm going to plug in 1 whole for the x. When I put that with the 8.4, I would get 9.4. I add it to that 6.1 in the front, and I should get 15.5. So they're the same thing. So I know the associative property was being used. Okay, let's take a look at number 3. This one looked to me a little bit like it would be distributive, but is actually associative. I'm going to move the parentheses. I'm going to put the parentheses around, not the 11 and 12. I'm going to try it around the 5 and 11. But remember, it's not 511, it's 5 times 11. What would be 5 times 11? It would be 55. Okay, I still have that y is now on the outside. So if I think y is 1, excuse me, that was my phone. If I think 5 is going to be equal to 1, let's just say, just to check out my theory, then 55 times that 1 outside would still give me 55. If I put 1 on the original problem as y, it would be 11 times 1, which is 11, and then 11 times 55 is 55. Okay, let's go ahead and we're going to skip number 4 and let's go to the back. The back looks like this. Now, this is where I think possibly we're going to be doing some distributive. We're going to distribute that 8 with the 3, and then we're going to also distribute the 8 with the x. So, if I distribute the 8 with the 3, it would look like 8 times 3. And then I'm going to distribute the 8 with the x. So it'll be 8 times x. I'm going to put a dot because if I don't, it'll look like xx. Now, what are we doing with both of these? We're going to add them. This is the distributive property. Okay? Now, if I look at number 6, this one, again, I see 3 numbers in a variable, and I see plus symbols, and I see parentheses. I'm thinking this one is going to be more for associative. Who's hanging out with who? In this case, A is hanging out with 9. I'm going to switch it around and put 10 hanging out with A. Okay? And then we're going to leave 9 by itself. We should still get the same answer if I plug in 1 for A. 1 plus 9 on the top will give me 10, and then 10 plus 10 is 20. If I put 1 on this problem, 10 plus 1 is 11, and 11 plus 9 is 20. Number 7, we are going to use the associative property. We're going to associate not the 4 and the n, we're going to associate the 5 with the 4. They're side by side, so you're going to multiply. And the n is going to go on the outside. If I plug in 1 for n, in this situation, 4 times 1 is 4, times that 5 on the outside is 20. If I plug in 1 for this end, 5 times 4 in the parentheses is 20, and 20 times 1 is still 20. Looking at number 8. 8 is a little bit different. This one's going to be the distributive property. We are distributing the 5 with everything inside the parentheses. I'm going to start with the 5 and the m. It's going to be 5 times m. Now I'm going to associate the 5 with the 4. So we're going to do 5 times 4. Now, what are we doing with both of these numbers? We are subtracting them. Number 9. It looks like the associative property. We're changing out who's associating with who. Okay, here we have C and 6 associating. What would be a different way to do it? Could we maybe put the C by itself and put the 6 with the 12.7? And yes, we should get the same answer. The last one, again, it's going to be associative. We're going to change out who's together. 10 and C are together here, but now I think we're going to put 6 with 10 and leave C by itself on the outside. Last is problem number 11. It says you and 6 friends are on a basketball team. A sponsor paid $100 for the league fee, X dollars for each player's t-shirt, and $68.25 for trophies. Write an expression for the total amount paid by the sponsor. Then simplify and list the property that you used. So, you and 6 friends, that would be a total of 7 people. You paid $100 for the league fee and X dollars for each player's t-shirt and $68.25 for the trophies. So, if we paid $100 for the league plus the $68 for the trophies, and we put those together, that would give me one total. And we also have to remember we have to add in how much each shirt costs. Well, each shirt was worth X dollars. But how many people are getting the shirts? 7. So now we're going to add that to 7 times X amount of dollars. And that should give us the total for how much we paid for the whole, that the sponsor had to pay for the whole entire team for that season. That was a tough one. Alrighty, I hope you enjoyed the lesson today. I hope you wrote everything down, and we will talk more about it tomorrow. See you with your homework done tomorrow. Bye.
She just finished taking our video.